Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mission Employable podcast. My name is Ryan West. I am your host. We have a great show for you today. We're in studio. We're recording. We got a lot of things going on. The guest is probably like, what is going on with all this? So if you're watching this on YouTube or through some of our other outlets, welcome and thank you. We'd love to have you download all of our episodes. And as we start to record these like this, we're really excited about just getting out some different content, actually being able to see the guest. Lord knows people don't want to look at me on these, but it's part of the process. So here we go. And today's show is all about the Iowa Area Education Agency, AEA, learning online. We're going to talk about what all that means. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the Iowa career modules from the AEA Learning Online portion that they offer. And I'm excited to hear about this. We were talking about this before we kind of walk up there, just how many different outlets are. There's so many opportunities out there. They're Iowa-specific, industry-sponsored, interactive, career investigative learning modules for Iowa's K through 12 students. Great stuff. On the microphone with us today to discuss this topic and perhaps a little more is Craig Mohr, who is an instructional designer with AEA Learning Online. Craig, thank you for joining us and welcome to the Mission Employable podcast.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
We're excited to have you, and we're excited to talk about this topic. I was telling him when we were walking up here that we really were trying to target this one a little sooner, but here we are today, and we're going to jump into it. We're going to make it worthwhile. So let's kind of kick this off. What we always usually like to do is a high-level overview of the entity. No different here. Talk to us about what is the AEA Learning Online and what is your role, and give us the Reader's Digest, but also like, hey, this is why this is such a fascinating program.
Excellent. Well, thanks again, Ryan. AEA Learning Online is a collaborative of the 9 AEAs in Iowa, and they provide services to K-12 students. And in this case, one of the things that we do is we create content for K-12 students.
Yeah.
And it's self-paced. We have core and we have elective modules. We also have self-paced mandatory license renewal and graduate credit for educators. But there's really two sides to what we do. And, the educator side and then the K-12 student side is where we create content. And that content is available to all K-12 students throughout Iowa for free. And here we have some career modules that we've been working on with employers. And, we'll get into that a little bit.
Yeah, very cool opportunity, and it's really kind of a work-based learning format to a certain degree with some of it. So talk to me about the 9 centers. So spread out around the state, right? So Johnson, obviously, for the Des Moines area. Where are those kind of located at? All over?
So they cover the whole state.
Okay.
Yep. Every district, around 330 districts, belong to one of the 9 AEAs.
Gotcha.
And the AEAs themselves provide things like special education resources or additional resources to those districts. So the districts kind of work together to support the AEA, and then the AEA provides things back to the district that, especially with smaller districts, it's difficult for some districts to be able to offer those things. And, as a career module, as an example, I have yet to find a teacher who doesn't think career modules are a good idea.
For sure.
But the idea of a teacher going out and finding an industry that wants to sponsor a module, build the module, and then offer it to their students, that's completely outside of the realm of capability. They have a full-time job. They don't have time to do stuff like that.
Right.
So this is one of the things that AEAs do that really is a resource for K-12 students and for districts that might not be able to do it on their own.
Yeah, great program. And again, I don't think enough people really realize that this is a thing and this goes on and this happens. And so it's just kind of extra curriculum for the students, right? Essentially. And so if a student's looking for something a little different or more, talk to us kind of what that means, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. So the content that we build is self-paced. So students can take it at their own, desire. Teachers can assign it to students, or students can find it. So we have core content, think your algebra, your earth science,
sure.
Creative writing, and teachers can assign that to students. In addition to that, there's a whole catalog of elective content, and that's where the career modules are. So these are modules that students can discover on their own. They can take in class. A teacher can tell them, in a career course, maybe go find 5 or 8 of these to take, or a student can find them on their own and they can complete them. And really, they're connected to Iowa's industry through these career modules, in their classrooms.
Gotcha. And so credit for these then, non-credit, how does that work?
So the credit comes from the school.
Okay.
This is just a resource that's available for the credit issuer to use, kind of like a textbook or something, but it's in an online space.
Yep.
And if you think about some of the elective options we have Iowa College Aid How to Go to College series, where students can, if they're interested in going to college, they can take these series of modules to really step-by-step walk them through the process.
Yeah.
There's interest things as well, blockchain using JavaScript. If we look at some of the others, resume writing, or exactly. And the goal is that students can find something they're interested in, learn more about it at a pretty high level.
Sure.
And in this case, when we look at careers, we're really looking at, okay, so everybody in Iowa is going to, most people are going to work at some point in their life. Right. And the idea is to connect the students with the employer.
Yep.
And employers who sponsor modules, they can put, essentially the content that they find relevant to their future employees in a module. And, we actually link the two. So as a student goes through a module, if we think of Mid-American built a series of modules, the career modules actually lead the student to the applications for these programs. So for their apprenticeship programs in natural gas and utility electric, and into wind energy, wind technicians. So it's really laying the path out for the student where if you're interested in this is kind of the information you're going to need. When I talk about this, I typically bring up that it's kind of like having your parents. If your parents were in an industry, they're going to give you the inside scoop on what's going on.
Yep.
And a career module is very similar to having a parent that's in there. So it'll link to programs, it'll link to companies or to actual people. If we think of one we built with True North Risk Management from Cedar Rapids, it actually links to their internship coordinator. So if a student is interested in pursuing something in the insurance and risk management field, they can actually email the internship coordinator, and that coordinator is going to reach back out to them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very cool. It's awesome. So plug the link for the website for us. Where do we want to send folks if they're interested, if parents are interested, I'd like to look at this with my child. How do people find out more information?
Absolutely. So AEA Learning Online is our entity, and from our homepage, you can get to it. The direct link to this system is learning.aeak12online.org. Okay. And students can make accounts automatically, so you don't have to be in your classroom to make an account. You just have to know your school email address. Yeah. And then parents, they can also preview modules. So if you go on there and you see something you want to look at, a parent or a student can preview it as a part of is this something I want to do? It's not like there's no cost to it, but you don't want to jump into something that you say, this isn't what I thought it was.
For sure, yeah, absolutely. No, it's a great way. We talk about this all the time, Craig. It's, one of the things that it can help students do is obviously get connected with programs, but also help them maybe identify what they don't want to do as well, which I think is so important. And so great stuff. So I officially really beat that question down there. A lot of great information there, but I think that for folks who weren't aware that you laid it out very, very at a very high level, but also with a lot of detail so people can kind of understand, okay, well, this makes a lot of sense. Talk to us about the 3 types of online learnings you guys promote and how those work. I looked at that stuff on the website, and I'm curious what you think about that.
Yeah. So really what we're offering is self-paced learning. And the type of learning that's going to happen from that is core content or elective content. Those are really the big things. And when we go through a career module and we take, as a participant, as a student, you're taking content that you have choice in. There's student agency and saying, I'm not interested in being an engineer. Okay, well then don't take a module on being an engineer. But as you said, right. It's just as important to realize what you don't want to do than it is realize what you do want to do. And I don't know if you were the same way, but when I was coming out of high school, I remember thinking to myself, of all the options I have, I'm interested in education. Yeah. But had I been exposed to that information, as I said before, talking with your parents, you get a lot of knowledge, and my parents were in education, and being exposed to that information as a 16, 17, 18-year-old, maybe even younger, 13-year-old, it opens the door to say, hey, there's other opportunities out there, and if you want to be successful in one of these other opportunities, here's kind of a roadmap to do that. Yeah. And there's, industries and companies are different, but you can confidently say, in the construction industry, there's kind of things that you need to do in order to be successful. If you want to, be a construction worker, you probably are going to need your OSHA training. Mm-hmm. Well, OSHA training is one thing that we offer so that students can take that training and then they have a leg up when they get into the industry.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really helps kids young adults get into potentially a career path as soon as they graduate. I think more and more we're seeing now employers are opening up, okay, well, let's get them in here and then we'll figure out the education piece along the way. We're seeing more major employers. I really encourage people to listen to the Principal Financial Grip podcast we did, because they were like, well, we're really kind of looking at, maybe 4-year degree. We don't need that right away. We can help them work through that. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think it's a different time. So great stuff. Okay, let's switch gears. Talk to us about the industry sponsor component and how that works and how it's been effective for you guys and what you've kind of seen out of it. Because I think this is getting those employers to sponsor to come into these career modules is just a real awesome thing, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. So really the employer sponsorship came from an identified need that Iowa schools needed more relevant career content for their students. It wasn't helpful to learn about being an electrician from somebody that was, in the hurricane in Florida about being an electrician. It's not that the information's that different. It's just not that Iowa students aren't relating to that.
Right.
So the idea was, all right, let's go find companies that are that have careers and have a need or will have a future need in those industries. So we work with companies that want to essentially talk with or communicate with students that are making career decisions.
Yep.
And what we found is in talking with companies, sometimes they're too late to the party. It's not that it's not intentional, but they realize.
See it all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
They realize that somebody's already made a decision when they're 16 or 17 or and so can we provide the relevant information earlier? And that's where the sponsorship comes from. So industries or businesses, associations sometimes, the goal is we're finding the relevant players, we're connecting that relevant player to a module, and then that module is available to K-12 students all throughout Iowa. Mm. And it's important to realize, there's big employers, there's small employers, there's big associations. It's really good for any size because anybody can consume the content. Yep. Before COVID, you think about the businesses would go to schools, during a work fair or something, yep. Or maybe go talk to a high school class. Well, a career module is you have the ability to talk to every high school class in Iowa all throughout the year. You're not limited by your travel. You're not limited by the amount of time that your workforce coordinator can reach those high schools. So this is a way to provide content and really get in front of the students when they're making those career decisions.
Yeah, and the pandemic was obviously terrible, but that is one of maybe the positives that came out of it, just from a standpoint of learning, where that learning online is more accepted.
Yep.
Maybe not always hasn't always been as popular, but it is certainly a relevant thing. Let me ask you a question. I hear this all the time in the trades, so this could be a great example for the trades. Maybe they're already doing this, where a lot of times we hear when kids are coming out of school, they're not able to pass some of the math in the trades. It's trades math, as they call it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So to me, that's an opportunity for a module to specifically get kids so they're comfortable with that math, so they can pass those tests to get into the programs.
Yep.
Maybe that's just like, no kidding, but yeah, that's a great opportunity there as well, right? Just as an example.
Yeah, absolutely. We have some core content that is available. So it's not specifically trades math, but your Algebra 1.
Sure.
The course is broken down into modules, which are similar to like chapters. So a teacher or an entity can suggest a specific module to a student, and if you do well in that module, then you're proficient in trades math.
Right.
Interestingly, our Home Builders Association module, they essentially said the same thing. Like, we don't necessarily want to go through and teach them trades math, but we want them to know if they have a math background that's sufficient for this industry. Mm-hmm. And so in their module, we have, I would guess there's 10 questions with immediate feedback that basically says, hey, if you want to know if you're proficient enough, do these 10 questions. you'll get your immediate feedback. And if you're not proficient enough, it's not a big deal, but just realize, okay, that's an area that I'm going to have to do better at if I want to get into this industry.
Yeah.
And it's not meant, I mean, a student can skip it. You know, it's not meant to be punitive. The goal is provide feedback for the student because, you know, as a student in high school, you're constantly getting that feedback. And sometimes it comes in a manner that's maybe a little bit aggressive or an area that you don't want to hear. So this is it's not meant to discourage. It's just meant to provide, this is the feedback on where you're at.
You know, it's fair. I mean, yeah, you need some of that. I mean, you need to know if you're on track or not. I appreciate that answer. That's good stuff. Okay, so you know, what do you think the overall kind of success of the Iowa career models with students has been? You know, what's your kind of the feedback from students? You know, this is a real open-ended question, I realize, but what are some of your success stories there? What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Ryan, this is one of the reasons we were excited to be on the podcast was that we want to reach, we wanted to reach out and have more people be aware of this. And as we talked about before, you can never have too much awareness about, you know, a resource that's available.
Not when there's so many resources out there. I mean, you really got to sell. I mean, you know, a program like this, you really just have to continually sell what you're offering and in a weird way to get people to market it to people so they don't forget about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, some of the successes we've seen are, you know, a career teacher is at a presentation or listens to this podcast or somehow gets connected with some of the industry-sponsored modules, and then they use them with their students, and they use them, you know, year after year with their students because it provides that agency. It provides an opportunity for students to learn about opportunities that are available in their backyard. Really, it's a win-win really a win-win-win for teachers, students, and for businesses.
Agreed.
So far, we've had about 7,500 student enrollments in the modules. And you know, you're never going to be content with what you have. You always want to keep growing, and we want to keep the momentum going. And our goal is that more students in Iowa find success because of engaging with these career modules.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you guys how long have the career modules been in place?
Well, our first one was built about 4 years ago, but the traction didn't really start coming maybe until about 2.5. Right before COVID is when we really hit the gas on creating them, and we have more people creating them now. And it's kind of a, you know, the chicken egg scenario. You got to build it, you got to use it, you got to build more, you got to use more. So we're growing with usage, and as usage goes up, we want to get the word out to more and more, and just see it keep taking off.
How do you guys get the word out? Are you guys on social media? What are you guys doing there? I'm just curious, kind of what, you know, because we're always trying to. We have a zillion things we need to get out. We battle the social media monster. We have so many accounts. Sorry, I'm getting off on a tangent here. I don't mean to, but you know, I'm just. How are you guys getting the word? Do you just promote it through the schools, or what do you do there?
Yeah. So specifically, promotion of career modules typically comes from conferences.
Okay.
So we'll be at conferences. We'll present on the website I gave earlier, learning.aeak12online.org, is Iowa's personalized learning system. So it's a platform where students and teachers can both, you know, exist with pre-made content. Okay. So we also offer some other things for teachers, for educators. So it's not our only, offering, but specifically for career modules, that's going to happen at conferences. Our social media outreach at AEA Learning is really focused on all of our offerings. It's not just the career content. And, you know, even in big schools, typically you're going to have maybe one instructor. Real big schools, maybe two, that are going to focus on careers or on some sort of student development course. So we're not by any means offering it to every course. Yeah. We have, you know, a quick shout out for the CPA module, or accounting module from Iowa Society of CPAs in Drake. They built one with the expressed goal of getting into math classrooms. It's not all about just being in career classrooms. Yeah. You also want to get your relevant content into that discipline. And Mid-American Wind is another good one. We talk about Bernoulli's principle and why, you know, wind turbines turn and how they actually, the physics of generating electricity. So there is a career component, but our goal is also to say, well, this is relating back to the content you're learning in school, and this is why it's applicable. Every little piece of what you learn isn't applicable, but to the larger picture, you have to understand the picture in order to have a career in that field.
Right. Yeah. It's great marketing. To me, it is. I mean, to get more kids engaged in it. Great stuff. Okay. So what are some new things you guys are want to work on or looking at doing in the K-12, in this realm for that more career exploration? How does that look for you in the future as you move forward?
Yeah.
Obviously more modules, but I'm sure
Right.
more the merrier. And we'll talk about how people can get, again, wrapped up or how we can get people connected. But, specifically, what are you looking, are you exploring different things?
Yeah. So recently, one of the modules we put out there was a career profiler, where students have the option of taking different interest surveys in order to give them suggestions on careers that they might be interested in. I think a lot of schools do that anyway, so it's not meant to replace, it's just meant to supplement.
Yeah.
I remember I got one as a freshman that was for accounting, and I thought to myself, I don't think I'm interested in accounting. But, as a freshman, I didn't know.
Right.
So you kind of learn from each one of those that you do.
Sure.
Another area that we've started to develop more is in the professional trainings. I mentioned OSHA before.
Yeah.
So we work with Bondurant, their industrial tech course. They offer OSHA training certification so that now students that come out of there can go into the construction field, and you're saving employers hundreds of dollars because they're not training the student.
And you don't have students sitting out trying to pass that before they can work.
Yeah,
which,
exactly.
you get to that when you get the ground running when they graduate.
Yep, absolutely. Another one we worked with, Spencer Schools and Hospital. I heard the story and I thought there's got to be something we can do about that.
Yeah.
They did all this work to get students in hospitals, and the first thing they did was put the students in a classroom and teach them about bloodborne pathogens. So we said, well, let's develop a bloodborne pathogens training. Students can take it as a module. Now when they go to the hospital, they're ready to be at the hospital. They're not doing what they could be doing at home or in the classroom.
Sure.
Two of the interesting things we've seen a lot of growth on, one of them are virtual 3D tours. So how to create a more immersive environment for a student that's interested in an industry.
Yep.
You can't just walk into every business and say, hey, I'd like to look around.
Right.
So a business can create a 3D tour, and what it does, it works with virtual reality or it works with the computer, but a student is able to visually be in a space without physically being there.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, we're not trying to replace the physical aspect, but if people can't always go there, this is the next best thing.
Right.
This is how we can get people to see what a factory floor looks like without necessarily scheduling or getting to that factory. And the third thing the fourth thing that we've seen some growth in is virtual 3D models. So we've partnered with VivEd. They create models where students can interact with them, and then those models they call them pull-aparts. So you could look at an engine. You can watch an engine run virtually, and while it's running, you can take the pieces off.
Wow.
And if you want to see, you take off one of the outer cases and you can see a piston. Well, you can hover your mouse over it. It'll tell you about that piston. What are some specific things about it?
Very cool.
I mean, another relevant one for health sciences, you can take the COVID virus, you can take off the spike proteins, you can remove the envelope, and you can look at inside and see what the RNA actually looks like. Mm-hmm. So it's not just like, hey, go do this and you're going to learn a bunch of stuff. You can be creative, you can question, you can say, hey, what does it look like if I take the piston out of this engine?
Yeah, very interactive. That's awesome stuff. Yep. And that stuff's underway now or being developed now?
Yep. We have some already on the personalized learning system.
Yeah.
But our goal is, we've seen usage go up quite a bit because of it, and we want more immersion for K-12 students. I think that I'm sure the listeners know this better than I do, but it's about being immersed in content. Yep. And the more immersive you can be, the more interested your consumers are going to be. And really, our goal is to help K-12 students. So the more we can get them excited and get them interacting with content, the more information they're going to have to make a better career decision.
Well, I totally agree. And that's awesome to hear what you're doing on the 3D tour stuff and the modeling. It's to me, it's the next best thing to, you can engage kids all over the state again. You don't have to worry so much about the travel and all those situations. Yep. We see that when at the Build My Future event at the fairgrounds. There's some 3D touring there, and those things always do well and great stuff. Well, that's fascinating. I mean, it's really allowing kids, or will allow kids, even more kids, young adults, to get engaged in these. We talked about a lot of stuff here. There's a ton of great information. Let's talk about, again, how folks can get linked up. Where do we want to send them all again? And what's your plug here for an employer who may be thinking, well, I don't know if this is for me?
Yeah, absolutely. So if an employer would like to hear more, would like to talk further, our goal is to help them solve problems they have.
Yep.
And in turn, by doing that, we want to also help K-12 students.
For sure.
So I'm happy to discuss more with them. If they're interested in that further, we'll put, I don't know if you want me to say it or just
Go
put
ahead.
it.
No,
okay,
yeah, say
sounds
it.
good. My email is cmohr, not the typical way, CMOHR at AEALearningonline.org. And I'd love to chat more with anybody that's interested.
Yep.
And as far as sending students, parents, administrators, teachers to Iowa's personalized learning system, again, that's learning.aeak12online.org. Before we wrap up here, though, I want to give a quick shout out to Jake Welchins and Laura Williams.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've both been great in making these happen.
Yep.
And really, one thing that all three of us have worked on and collaborated on is how to integrate existing resources.
Yep.
So we've got a lot of cool stuff going on. How can we have those systems talk with each other and really make a better user experience for students throughout the state?
Great. That's great. Great plug for the Iowa Clearinghouse. Great stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Craig Mohr, who is an instructional designer with the AEA Learning Online, and obviously a wealth of information and knowledge. And you're very passionate about it when you're talking about it. So we're lucky to have you in the state of Iowa. Thank you for making time, and I look forward to talking. I'm going to need to get you back on maybe at the end of this year as well.
Excellent. Thanks, Ryan. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.